Welcome to Hard Script.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. It started with a sentence. Soft, casual, almost innocent. Not tonight, babe. I've got a headache. The first time, I believed her. The third time, I was patient. By the 10th, I had stopped keeping count. Not because I forgot, but because I started remembering something else. What it felt like to be invisible inside your own marriage. And here's the thing that no one tells you. It doesn't break you all at once. It wears you down quietly. Repetition becomes the weapon. Predictability, the mask. Every night it came with surgical precision. Same time, same tone, same distance. The woman I married, Ashley, was once full of life. Sharp, ambitious, magnetic. We used to laugh in the dark, talk about our dreams until the sun came up. But somewhere between her new friend group, her yoga studio, and her curated online persona, she started pulling away. Not physically, she was there. But emotionally, she had clocked out months ago. And yet, every morning, the money flowed. Groceries, bills, beauty appointments, online orders, donations to causes she barely read about. The cash moved like clockwork. Only I wasn't the one moving it anymore. She was. And when I looked at the numbers, they didn't lie. Her love was rationed. My finances weren't. But I stayed quiet. Because men are taught to hold it together. Provide. Endure. Wait for the phase to pass. Except this wasn't a phase. It was a strategy. And I saw it clearly one evening when I came home early from work. She didn't hear me come in. She was on the phone. Laughing. Loose. Free. Talking to someone she clearly trusted more than me. The way she sounded, like the version of her I hadn't heard in years. She said, "No, he won't ask. He never does. He just gives." I stood there, frozen, not angry, not even surprised, just done. That was the moment it clicked. She had headaches at night, but only for me. Her energy, her light, her passion, they weren't gone. They were just redirected. And I wasn't the destination anymore. So I made a decision. I wouldn't yell, wouldn't beg, wouldn't accuse. I'd do what she did. Act in silence. She asked for help. I said I'd check. Needed money for something urgent. I started asking questions. She wanted access to the joint account. I changed the passwords. No confrontation. No noise. Just strategy. Just like her. Because if her affection had conditions, then so did my support. And that was the night the roles reversed. She just didn't know it yet. The next morning, I watched her make coffee like nothing had changed. Hair in a messy bun, scrolling through her phone, smiling at something that wasn't me. I handed her the mug and said nothing. Just watched. She asked, half distracted, "Did you transfer the money for the credit card?" I nodded slightly, but I hadn't. Not yet. That was my first move. See, Ashley was used to instant access. She never needed to ask twice. My consistency became her entitlement. But I realized my silence had value. And now, it was currency. So I started pulling back. Quietly, I canceled a few auto payments she set up without asking. Reduced the limit on the joint card. Shifted our main account to a secondary one in my name. No drama. No accusations. Just adjustments. She didn't notice at first. She was too busy assuming I'd keep playing my part. Until the first decline charge. She came into the room holding her phone. Calm but puzzled. "Hey, did the card stop working?" I looked at her and replied evenly. "Yeah, I've been reorganizing a few things. Just keeping better track." She paused. Processing. Searching for an edge. But I gave her none. I had become unreadable. That was intentional. Later that week, she asked for help paying for a last-minute trip her friends had planned. "It's just 3 days," she said. "Everyone's going." I said, "Sounds fun." That was it. No offer. No wallet. No transfer. She blinked, confused. So, I just smiled. I'm keeping a tighter budget lately. And I walked away. I could feel the air change. Ashley wasn't used to limits. Especially not for me. She'd trained me into being agreeable. Always giving. Always fixing. And now, every small act of distance echoed louder than any confrontation ever could. The most dangerous man isn't the one who shouts. It's the one who stops responding. Because silence makes people question themselves. And that's exactly what was starting to happen. She began watching me more closely. Asking questions she never asked before. "Are you okay? You seem different. You're not mad, are you?" But I wasn't playing defense anymore. I was setting the tempo. Quietly. She went from passive indifference to visible confusion. She didn't know if she was losing me, or if I had already left emotionally. And I wasn't about to confirm either. I let her sit in the silence she used to weaponize. This wasn't revenge. It was a realignment. For the first time, I wasn't giving more than I was receiving. She thought love was guaranteed. But now, she was learning that access was earned. And I was done being free. At first, she tried to play it cool, like she didn't notice the small shifts happening around her. A canceled subscription here, a decline charge there. But soon, the silence started echoing louder than any words I could have said. That's when the headaches stopped. Or more accurately, that's when she stopped mentioning them. One night, she came to bed early. Hair done, clean sheets, dim lights. She slid in next to me like nothing had ever gone wrong. That used to be all I needed. Now, I felt nothing. I didn't pull away. I just didn't move. She waited a few seconds, then leaned in. You okay? I said I was tired. And I was. Tired of being used like a utility. Tired of being expected to keep giving while she rationed out affection like it was a favor. She laid there for a while, stiff, then finally turned the other way. No headache. No excuses. Just silence. But this time, the silence came from both of us. The next morning, she brought me coffee. Her voice had a softness I hadn't heard in a long time. I thanked her, but my tone was even. No extra warmth. Just acknowledgement. She was testing the waters, checking if the old dynamic could be restored. But the script had changed, and I wasn't reciting my old lines anymore. A few days later, she asked if I could cover her car payment. She said there had been a mix-up with her checking account. In the past, I would have done it without question. This time, I asked her what the mix-up was. She hesitated, said something about a delayed deposit. I said, let me know when it clears. That was it. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't accuse her of lying. I just put the responsibility back in her hands. She stared at me like I'd spoken a different language. Ashley had built an entire rhythm around me never saying no. Not directly. Not with hostility. Just this quiet, predictable yes to everything. But now she was in unfamiliar territory. I wasn't cruel. I was detached. And that's worse for someone like her. Someone who thrives on control masked as charm. She began poking at me emotionally. Asking if I was seeing someone. Asking if I was upset about something she forgot. I told her, no. I'm just focused on priorities right now. She didn't know how to respond to that. Because for the first time, she wasn't one of them. The panic came slowly. First in her voice. Then in her routines. She started texting me during the day again. Sending me memes. Asking how work was. Leaving, I miss you, notes near my laptop. But I didn't react. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. Because I wasn't playing defense anymore. And when you stop chasing, they start wondering who's replacing them. She felt the shift. But she was too late to stop it. There's something unsettling about watching someone realize they no longer have control. Especially when they thought they never needed to fight for it in the first place. Ashley had spent years building a quiet dominance in our home. Not through yelling or threats, but through calculated neglect. The kind that makes you feel invisible without ever saying a word. She thought I'd always be there, predictable, reliable, silent. But now, I was still there, just no longer reachable. That scared her more than any confrontation ever could. She started hovering, asking questions she never used to care about. Where are you going? Who were you texting? How late will you be tonight? I didn't lie. I just gave her nothing extra. Straight answers. No detail. No reassurance. I was becoming a stranger in my own house. And she hated it. She tried to reverse course fast, cooking dinner more often, sitting next to me on the couch, laughing too loudly at things that weren't funny. Like she was auditioning for a role she already lost. One night, I walked in from work and saw candles lit, music playing low, dinner on the table. Her effort was obvious. But effort, without change, is just performance. She smiled and said, I thought we could eat together tonight. Like old times. I nodded. Saturday. 8. No compliments. No warmth. Just quiet chewing and clinking forks. The silence wasn't awkward for me anymore. It was power. Not a weapon, but a mirror. And in that mirror, she started seeing what she had done. Not all at once, but in pieces. The dismissive words. The cold shoulders. The nights she turned away, claiming a headache the moment intimacy meant vulnerability. It wasn't just about sex. It was about connection. About giving. Not withholding like a queen granting favors. Now, she needed something. And I wasn't offering. Later that week, She had lunch with her friend Lauren. They were close. Too close. Ashley used to complain to her about how needy I was, how I expected too much. I never heard the exact words, but I could read the glances Lauren gave me like I was a child asking for attention. Now, the energy had flipped. Lauren stopped smiling around me, stopped making eye contact. Something had shifted, and I knew why. Ashley was cracking. She must have told Lauren something. Something real. Maybe not everything, but enough to show she wasn't in control anymore. That her husband, the predictable one, was slipping through her fingers, not with anger, but with indifference. And indifference is irreversible. She tried one more angle, financial control. "Hey," she said one afternoon. "I was thinking, maybe we should move some of the bills back to the joint account, just to simplify." I didn't respond immediately. Then I said, "We're good the way things are." She blinked. "Don't you trust me?" I looked her dead in the eye. "It's not about trust. It's about clarity." She had no idea how to counter that, because she'd lived in a world where everything was implied, but now I was only dealing in absolutes. And the more I distanced myself, the louder the silence got. Around her, inside her, even Lauren stopped coming over. Because no one wants to witness a collapse that's too quiet to explain. They say people only notice distance when you stop explaining it. I never announced my withdrawal. I never said, "I'm done." I just stopped showing up emotionally, and that emptiness started echoing through every room of our home. Ashley didn't break down immediately. She tried to keep her composure, tried to act like everything was still under control. But her smile tightened. Her voice softened in forced ways. Her laughter lost its timing. And one by one, the people she counted on to validate her began fading too. It started with Lauren. She stopped texting back instantly, then canceled a brunch, then simply stopped coming over at all. I didn't ask what happened, but Ashley's silence spoke volumes. Whatever she'd told Lauren must have revealed more weakness than she planned. Then her sister Rachel came by. Rachel always loved to hover, ask personal questions under the disguise of small talk. That day, she walked in, hugged Ashley, then turned to me with a strange kind of quiet. "You look different," she said, her voice trying to sound casual. "I feel clear," I answered. Rachel blinked, then looked at her sister. Ashley didn't meet her gaze. That's when I knew. Whatever story Ashley had been telling people before, about me being distant, passive, needy, it had unraveled. Because the truth was showing on my face now. I didn't look angry. I looked finished. She tried her last card, pity. Started making comments like, "I just feel so alone lately," or "Everything's falling apart." But those words don't work when you've trained someone to survive without you. I didn't rescue her. I didn't lean in to offer comfort. I just let her speak and left her with her own words. That's when she tried to reclaim normalcy. Suddenly, she wanted to take walks together, watch a movie, talk about us. I agreed to the walk. I walked 5 steps ahead. I agreed to the movie. I didn't sit close. I listened when she spoke, but I no longer heard anything I needed from her. And she knew. The silence became her punishment. Not because I weaponized it, but because she couldn't fill it anymore. She couldn't make me laugh, couldn't make me feel desire, couldn't spark that flicker in my eyes she used to own like property. She had hollowed out the bond for so long, then panicked when there was nothing left to draw from. And the people around us? They noticed. Neighbors waved at me now, not her. Her mom called me directly once, asking if I was okay. I said I was better than I'd been in years. She didn't know how to respond. Because what do you say when the man everyone assumed was silently suffering turns out to be silently rebuilding? Ashley stayed up late that night. Lights on. Pacing. I watched from the bedroom window as she sat alone on the patio, scrolling her phone, probably checking who was still replying to her messages. The isolation had finally caught up. But I didn't gloat. I didn't comfort. I simply closed the blinds. Because I was done watching her learn lessons I stopped trying to teach long ago. There's a moment when someone realizes they no longer have access to your emotions. Not your anger, not your joy, not even your disappointment. Just silence. That moment hit Ashley hard. It started with her birthday. She reminded me about it 3 times the week before, casually, like it was just something she was saying in passing. But I caught the tone behind it. Desperation cloaked in routine. In the past, I would have planned the day out. Dinner. Gift. Something thoughtful. Something that told her I was still trying. This time, I didn't forget. I simply didn't acknowledge it. The morning came. She walked into the kitchen expecting something. Anything. A card. A gesture. A word. I was already gone. No note. No message. Just an empty room and the sound of her own thoughts. I came back late that night. She was sitting on the couch, still in her birthday dress, makeup faded, eyes glassy. She looked up when I entered, expecting an apology, a late surprise, maybe even a sarcastic comment. I just said, "Long day," and walked past her. No explanation, no reaction, and that crushed her more than any argument could have. Because when someone truly doesn't care anymore, it shows in what they don't do. The next day, she slammed a cabinet. The day after that, she started accidentally mentioning old memories. First dates. Inside jokes. Her voice trying to bait me into something. Nostalgia. Regret. Anything human. I didn't bite. Not because I was cold. Because I was done being manipulated by sentimentality she used to weaponize. One evening, she left her laptop open on the table. Something she never did. I walked by, saw a chat window open, messages to a man I didn't recognize. Nothing overtly romantic. But I recognized the rhythm. The soft compliments. The laughter typed too easily. The availability. The same script she used with me once. She was testing me, waiting to see if I'd explode. Accuse. React. But I didn't. I simply closed the laptop. And never mentioned it. That silence. It terrified her. She started watching me now, really watching. Not with curiosity, but with fear. The fear of someone who's losing not just attention, but relevance. That week, she tried to seduce me. Midweek, late night, thin robe, soft music, a hint of perfume I hadn't smelled in years. I looked at her, held her gaze, then walked into the other room. No words. No argument. Just the sound of rejection she never imagined she'd hear. Rejection wrapped in indifference. Because that's when she realized I wasn't punishing her. I was beyond her reach. Emotionally, mentally, even physically. She cried that night. In the bathroom. Door cracked. Quiet sobs. Hoping I'd come knock, ask what was wrong. I didn't. Because when you've lived in silence long enough, you stop reacting to the sound of someone else's pain. Especially when it's the same person who ignored yours for years. And that's when I saw it. She was no longer trying to win. She was trying to be seen. By a man who no longer looked at her the same way. There's a particular silence that doesn't just fill the room. It seeps into someone's identity. Ashley had always relied on performance. Curated laughs, flawless makeup, carefully timed emotions. Everything she built was designed to be admired. But admiration has a shelf life. And hers had expired. It began when her boss, Mark, stopped giving her the spotlight during meetings. She came home one evening, tossed her heels across the floor harder than usual, and muttered, "He said I was slipping. Can you believe that?" I didn't respond. She waited, repeated herself louder. Still silence. That's when she understood my silence was no longer passive. It was deliberate, surgical, a form of distance that left no openings. Next, it was her social circle. One by one, the dinner invites stopped. The comments on her posts dried up. Even the girls who used to envy her relationship began liking my photos instead. I'd never posted much, but now, every picture carried weight. Not because I tried to look happy, but because I looked free. That kind of freedom is dangerous for someone like her. Because if the man she used to belittle now looked stronger without her, what did that say about her value? One night, she came to me with red eyes. "I think people are talking," she whispered. I just nodded once. Kept typing. The next day, I found her sitting in the dark, phone in hand, scrolling through old pictures of us, zooming in on smiles, probably trying to find out when the cracks began. She wasn't crying. She was calculating. Because for women like Ashley, loss is less about love and more about perception. And right now, perception was devouring her. Even at work, the energy shifted. I'd started hearing things, casual mentions from mutual contacts. Her numbers were dropping. Her name didn't carry the same weight. And that was my quiet revenge. Not sabotage, not slander, just the unspoken truth floating through every interaction. She had lost the man who once made her seem untouchable. And now, people were starting to see her without the spotlight. She tried once more, reached out to her ex, I knew. Not because she loved him, but because she needed someone to remind her she was still wanted. He didn't reply. She slammed her phone against the couch that night and screamed into a pillow. I didn't flinch, didn't offer comfort. Because there's a point when you realize someone didn't just betray you. They used you as a foundation to build a version of themselves that never existed. And now, the mask was slipping. Not just in our house, but everywhere. At the gym, at work, even on her carefully crafted Instagram page. Her followers dropped. Her likes dipped. And her smile, the one she used to weaponize, now looked forced, cracked at the edges. It was all collapsing. Not because I tore it down, but because I stepped away and took the light with me. It was a Tuesday night when she finally cracked. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't soothe, it suffocates. I just finished a call with a client. Calm, composed. As I walked into the kitchen, she was standing there, arms crossed, eyes wide, like she'd rehearsed this 100 times. She wanted a scene. "Why are you acting like this?" she asked, her voice trembling, but not from sadness. From panic. "You just stopped being here." I didn't answer. She stepped closer, forcing eye contact. "Say something." But the thing is, when you've already buried someone emotionally, speaking to them again feels like disturbing the dead. So I said nothing. She began throwing words like knives, accusations, twisted memories, questions she didn't want honest answers to. Was there someone else? Is this payback? You think you're better than me now? Each line more desperate than the last. I leaned against the counter. Still, controlled. Because what she was really asking wasn't about love, loyalty, or truth. She was asking why her power stopped working. Why her tears, her anger, her performance, none of it moved me anymore. It was the first time she realized I wasn't angry. I was done. She tried again, softer now. "Can we just talk? Fix this." But she knew. The second she asked, she already knew. There was no version of this where she got me back. I finally spoke. One sentence. Calm. Final. "You don't lose someone like me and get another shot." Then I left the room. Not storming out. Not slamming doors. Just walking away, like you do when the conversation's over. That night, she slept on the couch. Not because I told her to, but because the bed we once shared had become unfamiliar terrain, occupied by a man she could no longer predict, control, or decode. The next morning, I noticed her suitcase near the door. Still zipped. She hadn't left. Not yet. She wanted me to ask, to beg, to fight. But that's not who I was anymore. The man who once feared losing her was gone, replaced by someone she'd never get close enough to understand. By Friday, she tried one more time. Breakfast, made from scratch. A plate of eggs, toast, fresh orange juice. She set it down in front of me, eyes hopeful. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and left without touching a bite. Because when you've seen the truth behind someone's smile, even their kindness tastes like manipulation. Later that night, I found a letter on the counter. 5 pages. Her version of closure. I didn't read it. I shredded it without opening. Because closure is for people who still need something from each other. I needed nothing. And silence said more than any letter ever could. The days that followed weren't loud. They were slow, stretched, and empty, but not for me. For her. The mask she'd worn so comfortably started to crack in places she couldn't control. Her routine became erratic. She'd leave the house in the morning, dressed like she had somewhere to be, but I knew better. She wasn't heading to work. She was circling coffee shops, trying to find the version of herself that existed before the truth exposed her. But there was no going back. One night, I came home to find her crying in the bathroom. The door was cracked just enough. She didn't see me. Knees pulled to her chest. Phone on the floor, screen glowing with a post from someone we both knew. A photo of me at a business event, surrounded by people, smiling. Not staged. Not forced. Just alive. She wasn't crying because she missed me. She was mourning the control she no longer had. I watched for a few seconds longer, then walked past. Didn't stop. Didn't speak. She was collapsing from the inside, and I didn't lift a finger. That was the difference. Her destruction was loud, messy, and desperate. My transformation was silent, disciplined, clean. I changed the locks that week, closed the joint bank account, removed my name from anything connected to hers. Legally, financially, emotionally, I made myself vanish from her life. Each move was precise. Like surgery. She didn't fight back. Not anymore. Because now she understood. This wasn't a phase. This was the new reality. I started reconnecting with people I'd neglected, old friends, colleagues, even family who'd quietly distanced themselves during the chaos of our relationship. They welcomed me back without questions, just quiet nods. like they saw what I'd become and respected the man who emerged from the wreckage. I picked up old hobbies again, woodworking, reading, running, not as distractions, but as declarations. I no longer needed to prove anything. Not to her, not to anyone. I didn't erase her from memory. I just stopped giving her space in my future. She tried once more, sent a text. Just one line. Are you really gone? I looked at it for a moment. Not because I considered replying, but because even now, she couldn't accept silence as a final answer. I deleted the message, blocked her number, and with that, she disappeared into a life where I no longer existed. And I stepped fully into mine. Not better because she was gone. Better because I remembered who I was before I let her define me. It happened a few months later. A grocery store. Of all places. I was picking up a bottle of wine for a dinner with colleagues. The kind of evening that used to feel like a burden back when I lived inside her chaos. Now, it felt like freedom in a glass. I saw her in aisle 4. Hair undone. Hoodie too big. Pushing a cart she wasn't really filling. Just wandering. She saw me too. There was a pause. That strange weight that hits when the past and present crash into each other in a place as mundane as between frozen peas and canned soup. She didn't smile. Didn't wave. She just stared, like maybe, if she focused hard enough, she could rewind everything and stop me from becoming the man I now was. But it was too late. I looked back at her, not with anger, not with regret. Just clarity. She took a few steps closer. Hesitant. Like I was fire, and she'd forgotten how easily it could burn. I didn't think I'd see you again, she said. Still looking for a crack. A weakness. Anything. But I didn't give her one. You won't, I replied. No emotion. No tension. Just truth. She swallowed hard and gave a nod that was more of a flinch. Then she turned and walked away. No goodbye. No closure. Because the thing about people like her is, they expect the story to stay open. A door, a window, a key under the mat. I didn't just close the door. I rebuilt the house. That night, I sat at a long table surrounded by people who'd never known the version of me that begged, that bent, that broke. They only knew this one. The one who walked through fire and came out unscarred. Not because he avoided the heat, but because he let it burn everything that didn't belong. I toasted to nothing dramatic. Just life. Simple. Steady. Mine. Later, alone on the balcony, city lights beneath me, I thought about everything she'd taken and everything I'd reclaimed. She didn't ruin me. She revealed me. And that was her final mistake. Not the lies. Not the betrayal. But assuming I'd stay the same. The real twist? I didn't disappear. I just stopped showing up where I wasn't respected. And in that silence, she finally heard the loudest truth of all. Been through it. When they crossed a line, and you made sure they felt it.